You've had this experience before. You spent an hour, maybe two, trying to learn something. A piece of music, a new skill, a language. You practiced until you couldn't focus anymore. You made mistakes you kept repeating. You stopped because continuing felt pointless. Then you slept. The next morning, without touching it again, you were better, noticeably better. The thing that kept tripping you up just worked. Your fingers found the pattern. The words came more easily. Something had shifted overnight, and you hadn't done anything. You probably assumed this was a coincidence, or that your brain had simply reset, the way a computer restarts after freezing. It wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't a reset. Your brain spent the night actively finishing the work you started during the day. In the early 2000s, Matthew Walker, then at Harvard, ran a study that changed how neuroscientists think about learning. He had participants practice a finger-tapping sequence, a specific pattern repeated over and over, like a simple piano exercise. After practice, they were tested. Then they were split into two groups. One group slept, the other stayed awake. 12 hours later, both groups were tested again. The group that stayed awake showed modest improvement, the kind that comes from rest and reduced mental fatigue. The group that slept improved their speed by an average of 20%, without any additional practice. Walker's conclusion was precise. Practicing stops, but learning does not. The learning, the part that actually sticks, happens during sleep. Not alongside sleep, not because of sleep, during sleep. Sleep is not the pause between practice sessions. Sleep is a practice session. To understand what your brain is actually doing, you need to understand the problem it's solving. When you learn something new, your brain encodes it in the hippocampus, a structure deep in the brain that functions like a short-term holding space. The hippocampus can capture new information quickly, but it has a limited capacity, and what it holds is fragile. It's a temporary file, not a saved document. For a memory to last, for a skill to become genuinely yours, it has to be transferred. Moved from the hippocampus into the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain, where long-term memories are stored as stable, distributed networks. This transfer cannot happen while you are awake. While you are awake, your brain is continuously processing new input. The hippocampus is occupied. There is no quiet window for the transfer operation to run. Sleep is that window. During slow-wave sleep, something precise and coordinated happens inside your brain. The cortex generates slow, rolling electrical waves. The thalamus synchronizes and sends bursts of faster activity called sleep spindles. The hippocampus responds with its own sharp bursts, sharp wave ripples that fire in tight coordination with both. This three-part synchrony is the transfer. Each ripple is the hippocampus replaying a fragment of what you experienced that day, compressing it, tagging it, and transmitting it to the neocortex for long-term storage. MIT researchers demonstrated this directly in 2009. They recorded hippocampal activity in animals during both learning and sleep. What they found was unambiguous. The hippocampus replayed the day's experiences during sleep in the same sequence they occurred, like a film being reviewed and archived. When researchers blocked this replay, animals failed to form long-term memories of what they had learned. The experience happened, the practice happened, but without the sleep-based replay, none of it transferred. The learning didn't fail during the day, it failed because the night was interrupted. There is a detail about timing that matters more than most people realize. The replay and transfer that consolidates motor skills, movement, sequences, physical patterns, happens predominantly in the final 2 hours of a full night's sleep. Not the first 2 hours, the last two. This is the stage most people cut with an alarm clock. You go to bed at midnight and wake up at 6. You got 6 hours of sleep. You feel functional. What you don't know is that you ended your sleep exactly when your brain was beginning the most critical phase of consolidating everything you practiced yesterday. The 6 hours felt complete. The learning wasn't. There is also what happens before you learn, not just after. Sleep deprivation doesn't only block the consolidation of what you've already learned, it reduces your brain's capacity to encode new information in the first place. Research shows that going into a learning session without adequate sleep reduces the hippocampus's ability to form new memories by approximately 40%. Your brain maintains a temporary memory window of roughly 16 hours. After that, without sleep, new information begins to degrade. The window closes. This means that cramming the night before an exam, cutting sleep to get more review time, is not a neutral trade-off. You are spending the exact currency you need to make the studying permanent. Here is what this means for how you think about practice and performance. The separation between learning and sleeping is artificial. They are two phases of the same process. Practicing without sleeping is like loading a file without saving it. The work happened, the progress is real. But if the save doesn't run, none of it will be there tomorrow. This is not a metaphor for sleeping more. It is a literal description of what your brain's memory architecture requires. The students who perform best are not always the ones who studied longest the night before. They are often the ones who studied earlier, slept fully, and arrived with a brain that had finished processing what they gave it. The athletes who improve fastest are not always the ones who practiced hardest. They are the ones whose sleep gave their motor cortex time to do what waking practice cannot. You already know that sleep matters. Everyone does. But knowing that sleep is good for you is not the same as understanding what your brain is actually doing at night. It is not resting. It is not recovering. It is running an operation that your waking hours cannot perform. Reviewing what you experienced. Compressing what mattered. Transferring it somewhere permanent. The night is not time stolen from learning. The night is where learning is completed. Every hour of practice you invest is a promissory note. Sleep is when it gets paid out.